settling down, getting out of this small town. Hang a sign, this heart is closed. I'm gonna hit the open road. I'm giving up on settling down. I've been left at the altar, been left at the bar. Gave all I got to love, all I got was a broken heart. But I got my eyes on a new horizon, and I've learned my lesson. I'm giving up on settling down, getting out of this small town. Hang a sign, this heart is closed. I'm gonna hit the open road. I'm giving up on settling down. I'm married to the mountains, the rivers and the roads. They take me as I am, they make me feel at home. But I got my mindset, my four-wheel drive tech, and ain't looking back anymore. I'm giving up on settling down, getting out of that small town. Hang a sign, this heart is closed. I'ma hit the open road. I'm giving up on settling down. Come on. I'm giving up on settling down, getting out of this small town. Hang a sign, this heart is closed. I'ma hit the open road. I'm giving up on settling down, getting out of this small town. Hang a sign, this heart is closed. I'ma hit the open road. I'm giving up on settling down.
Welcome back to Sailing El Haleo. Sorry about the delayed introduction on this one. I like to keep things in chronological order, and I had flown the drone in Doboy Sound, so I thought we'd take a look at that footage first. And, last week we did a bunch of cuts. This week, all along Georgia, there's this whole stretch is a bunch of sounds and cuts and little tidal rivers. So let's see, last time we left off in Doboy Sound, if I can find it here. There we go. And I'm not going to trace through all these little rivers and cuts, there's just way too many of them. But we go along the coast, we continue south, we go across the Savannah River, which is always very heavy traffic, lots of commercial traffic there. And then we go through Ossabaw Sound, we go down to St. Cathrine Sound, we cross, let's see, this one is Sapello Sound. And then we keep going down, we go through Doboy Sound, and we go across Altamaha Sound. It's just tons of little sounds and rivers, and it's a pretty busy area. So then we get we close in on what is the name of this town here? I forget. It's St. Simon Sound, but I forget the name of the big town that's there. But we always stay just north of there. There is a side trip. The Intracoastal Waterway goes over on this side here, but I always peel off here, and as long as it's not dead low tide, you can get through here. And I go down the Frederica River and I anchor right next to Fort Frederica. It's nice to spend a few days there. So that's about as far as we're going to get this time. So I guess we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. And I really do not like the feel of this video so far. We're over 5 minutes in and it feels like we're just getting started. So geez, I don't normally like to put drone footage up front, but to keep things in order, it kind of is what it is. I don't like it, but that's kind of the way it had to work out. So I doubt if anyone is still paying attention at this point. But anyway, Bull Creek is pretty close to the Georgia-South Carolina border. It's maybe only 5 miles away. And to get there, you know, like I said, we go through a lot of little creeks and rivers and stuff. And there is one tricky spot on Ramshorn Creek that used to be very shallow. And going through this year, the sonar charts have changed completely. So I don't know if they did some dredging there. It used to be a little tricky at low tide, but I came through at low tide this time and I had no problem at all. So I don't know if they did some quick dredging there or not, but that is not an issue at all. And to enter into Georgia, you have to go across the Savannah River. That's where the state dividing line is. And it's always nice to have AIS in this area because container ships can surprise you. It's a very fast-moving river, and they can get going pretty quick down there. And it's not so much the ones that are going from Savannah out to sea, it's the ones coming in from sea going to Savannah that can surprise you, because the Fields Cut, which spills into the Savannah River, it comes in at an angle, and it can be hard to see back out towards the ocean. So until you're crossing into the river, you don't necessarily know what's coming. And it can be pretty surprising when you look to your port side and see a container ship bearing down on you. And those things are deceptively fast. So here's one situation where AIS is really nice to have because you can see all of that stuff long before you get there. And you saw just a few moments ago that we did have to contend with one rather large vessel when we were crossing the Savannah River. And you know, if there's anything that looks like it might be an issue, if there's a huge container ship or something, a tanker within even 2 miles of the Fields Cut, I will reach out to those ships on the radio and ask them what their ETA is to the Fields Cut. Their software is a lot more complex, so they'll know exactly when they'll be crossing that section of the river. And, you know, it takes me probably 8 minutes to get across the Savannah River. It's not very wide. But you really don't want to mess around with these ships. As you can imagine, you would not win in that battle. And yeah, and there's nowhere even for those ships to maneuver. So if you're in their way, they really don't have a whole lot of options as far as you know, avoiding you. So there's no reason to take a chance here. You know, if it takes me 8 or 10 minutes to get across, if there's a ship that's going to be there even 15 minutes, you know, I'll just pull up and wait, or I'll go, you know, steer around and go behind them like I did in this case. It's, you know, it's just not worth taking a chance. After making it into Georgia and going through Savannah, Thunderbolt, and the Isle of Hope, it was time to find a place to anchor. And the wind was picking up at this point. We had always been fortunate the last few years that the wind on the nights we were passing through this area would be blowing out of the northeast. And there is a stand of trees in the Vernon River. You can get really close to shore. You can anchor right next to it, and it offers wonderful protection. But that's the only wind angle or direction that's acceptable to stay there. Otherwise, it just gets too rough. You know, it's right out in Ossabaw Sound. It's very exposed. So instead of going to our normal anchorage in Vernon River, we actually went up the Vernon River to a little residential area, and it was a very strong current. You know, in Georgia, the currents are very strong. Typically, the tide swings there are between, you know, I would say 7.5 and 10 feet, depending upon the time of month. So the currents there are very strong. You can see we're struggling against it to get up the Vernon River, especially where it narrows. The current was running very fast. But we got up there, and we actually ended up staying for a few days. There was some wind and rain coming through, so we just hunkered down and had a couple of lazy days. After spending a couple of days in the Vernon River, it was time to get back on the road again, and this meant contending with our next challenge, which is Hellgate. Now, Hellgate can be a little tricky. I've done entire videos on Hellgate before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's a very dynamic area. You're going between 2 inlets, and the current actually changes 4 times in that time span. It can be a really confusing area, especially with the strong currents. So you really need to have very good navigation software when you're going through here. And you do need to trust your navigation software, because where the bow of your boat is pointed, especially if you're in a slow-moving boat like EJ, where the bow is pointed is not where you'll be going, because the currents are pushing you sideways. So you do need to be a little bit careful here. We did go through Hellgate on a dropping tide, which is not how I would care to do it. But I knew where the path to get through was, and you can actually make it through even at low tide. So I wasn't super worried about it. But if you nail the channel, then you're going to be perfectly fine. If you it is a very narrow channel to get through there. If you do get outside of the channel, you can run into some problems. So if it is your first time through this area, and especially if you're in a slow-moving boat like EJ, you might want to wait until there's a rising tide to sneak through there. It just gives you a little bit of a cushion to make it through. We called it a day after making it through Ossabaw Sound, which is where Hellgate is, and St. Cathrine Sound. We could have probably done Sapello Sound as well, but, you know, we're not in any big hurry, so we called it an early day, and we anchored for the night in Wahoo Creek. After spending one night in Wahoo Creek, we got up early the next morning and we were treated to a stunning sunrise. We got up early because we wanted to make it all the way through Sapello Sound, Doboy Sound, and Altamaha Sound, and we wanted to make it all the way to the Frederica River so we could anchor next to Fort Frederica for a few days. We ended the day just as we had started it, which was admiring nature's beauty. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Sponton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.